Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the MPO Board on November 8th, 2017. I have a memorandum here from Chairman Miller that he will be out this morning due to a family medical issue. And we also want to take this opportunity to welcome two new members, the new mayor of Temple Terrace, Dr. Mel Gerardo, and also from the Heart Board, David Mechanic, who is over there. So good morning and welcome, and thank you for joining us this morning. We are going to begin with Commissioner Stacy White, who is going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and the invocation.
Thank you. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Attention, salute, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heavenly Father, I pray that you will guide this board, our staff, and our community stakeholders as we make decisions that are important to this region. Lord, I also pray for our leaders across the nation as we deal with issues that are of critical importance. As always, Father, I pray for members of our military and our first responders who put their lives on the line each and every day for our safety. I pray that you'll guide them, comfort them, and deliver them home safely. I ask all of this in your heavenly name. Amen.
Amen. Our first order of business this morning is public comment. We have 3 minutes reserved per speaker, anyone that would like to address the board. We have 3 speakers who have signed up. They are Chris Cochran, Sam Gibbons, and Chris Vila. Good morning.
Good morning, board. My name is Chris Cochran. I am the manager of planning for Heart, and I am here before you today to speak about our gratitude for your support in our CAD AVL project that was recently put on funding for the 2023 work program through FDOT. We just wanted to take a moment to express our gratitude for your support in this project. It's really critical in the towards the overall support in the preservation of our system. Our current CAD AVL system is 10 years old. It involves not only our real-time system, but also security cameras, the ability for us to move forward with our Flamingo project. And at this point in time, we are really at the point where it is we are not able to find spare parts for our project, for our hardware components. They are no longer supported at this point in time. So this is really a critical project that you all were able to push through, and we're very grateful for that. And this really gives us an opportunity to move forward with an opportunity for us to continue giving good service to our customers and to the people of the county and to our visitors. So thank you again. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sam Gibbons. Thank you for your time this morning. I'm here to talk about TBX and our TBX process. And I really still believe, and most of us do, that our cities and region do not need to suffer for better regional cohesion. And I promise you this. And if Tampa, our largest city, is on FDOT's table, then the rest of the region's on the menu too. Where does it stop? This multi-generational erosion of community identity. This multi-generational taking of our tax base for cities and counties that are starving for revenue. After 2 years of this dance with FDOT, the only substantial change from this proposal that I can see is a bike lane on the Howard Franklin Bridge to nowhere. The only other piece of it I see is adding of toll lanes instead of repurposing general use lanes from the public on that same bridge. FDOT's unwillingness to come to terms that this long-term project is a dated abomination that continues to prioritize automobile traffic over other forms of travel is going against the grain of a paradigm shift that's happening nationally, pushed by forward-thinking agencies and by private businesses alike. Channelside's Water Street project is such an example of prioritizing bicycle and pedestrian traffic and other modes of traffic over automobiles. It will allow for safer communities, safer cities, and in turn build a stronger region. Reconstructing the Heights reconstructing the Heights neighborhoods and safely connecting those neighborhoods to our Tampa Riverwalk, Bayshore Boulevard, and soon-to-be famous Water Street would be an economic anchor. But why would a transportation agency need to understand that when all they do is feel obligated to draw in a bike lane to nowhere and shove more cars on our streets? Their project will only bolster our nationally recognized traffic fatality and congestion problems that help justify FDOT's budget. Streamlining Malfunction Junction to a linear east-west freeway will dramatically increase the chances of this malfunctioning interstate to become successful. And I know and I understand that FDOT will not relocate this money for transit, and that's fine. I would ask this board to reach out to the Hillsborough County Legislative Delegation to reappropriate these funds and ask that the TBX money be changed to match a state, to do a state match for safe, sustainable multimodal transportation projects. And I'd also ask that this reappropriation include Josh Frank's proposal. The answer to our congestion problems isn't the privatization of infrastructure for automobiles. It's a less reliance of automobiles altogether. Increasing meaningful mobility options will strengthen our cities, which will strengthen our region, and that is not pie in the sky. Thank you.
Thank you. We have two more speakers, Chris Vila and then Sharon Calvert.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Christopher Bell. I live at 92415 East 11th Avenue, Tampa, Florida. Now, I just wanted to give you a little update because I've been involved in this process for some time. You guys see me up here quite a bit. I just want to reiterate that my community is surrounded by 3 interstate systems. So that's like the crosstown, the connector, I-4, I-275. The proposals that we have seen since the reset is basically having 24 lanes go through Ybor City. Let me repeat that, 24 lanes going through my city. And I don't think any of us appreciate that after all the dialogue, the hard work, the time we took off, the efforts that we put into this, the trust that we tried to instill with FDOT. They're still like aiming really low, trying to give us low-hanging fruit in this matter. The other thing is, for people in West Tampa who really lost out in this discussion, they're going to have 20 lanes go through their neighborhood. In fact, they're going to have express toll lanes dump on McDill Boulevard, right in front of McDill Park, right next to a school, the Boys and Girls Club. Is this the type of future that we want for our city? Is this the type of direction that we want? Realize that these folks that are behind me got like a $30 million contract to work this out. And they also have some other studies that are doing in silos. We saw a property acquisition that occurred about in July, the AKA house on 7th Avenue. That's now just been purchased. We were told that that was not going to happen earlier this year. The other thing too, with the proposals that were presented, we saw that FDOT wanted to use the HSR right away. If you guys knew about this and the constitutional revision that the state was trying to push through, they were trying to eradicate high-speed rail. So I find it kind of convenient that FDOT would want to stuff some more lanes in the middle of the transit envelope that actually we deserve to connect to other cities, where we can actually get some big corporate headquarters like Amazon, or we can actually like reconnect the districts that have been separated by the highways. I'm just really upset with them right now, and I think what you guys need to do is to have a really deep discussion and a workshop with FDOT and try to figure out how we can actually get money to get transit first and people first. We can look at climate bonds, we can look at carbon exchange marketplaces. Seattle got billions of dollars to appropriate money towards their own transit system. We saw over $150 billion issued last year in climate bonds. So this is a lot of money that doesn't necessarily have to come from Tallahassee. This is not a political game. This could be a very lucrative, but also like a very open and accountable P3 process where we build climate resilient infrastructure. And we also have ways to get people connected. So, another thing that's really getting me upset as well is FDOT has determined, as long with the MPO, unfortunately, to get more money out of this process, this low-hanging fruit, to get more express buses. We just want rail. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sharon Calvert. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Sharon Calvert. I now live in Tierra Verde over in Pinellas County. And I'm going to just do an abbreviated version of what I have written. so I'll respect your 3 minutes. And I'm going to leave a copy, so I hopefully, Beth, you'll provide a copy. But we watched as Hurricane Harvey on Texas and Louisiana and Irma impact almost the entire state of Florida. And we know that Tampa is vulnerable to hurricanes, storm surge, major flooding. And the state wants all major evacuation routes available during these times of crisis and emergencies. And it's hard to imagine, as Governor Scott traveled the state telling people to get out of harm's way, that was about to engulf the entire state of hurricane, that you could fathom somebody saying to him, well, the evacuation route of 275 is being torn down. However, that was one of the proposals. I was at the August 1st meeting, right in the midst of hurricane season, when that proposal was presented. I was quite astonished, because as you know, it was 5 or 6 weeks later that we had Irma. But one of the things is in that presentation that did not include, or he did include examples, but they were totally out of context. The Embarcadero in San Francisco is 1.2-mile elevated freeway that was along the waterfront. And actually, there was a referendum in 1986 that was overwhelmingly defeated about tearing it down. However, it was impacted by the earthquake in 1989, and eventually it was torn down. But of course, there was some politics because the mayor of San Francisco that year got defeated by an opponent who didn't want to tear it down. The Central Freeway in San Francisco was also damaged by the earthquake. It's less than 1.2-mile spur off of US Highway 101, not an interstate. And what they did there was they did tear down part of it, but then they put 4 blocks into Octavia Boulevard. Today, Octavia Boulevard has lots of issues, have some of the most dangerous intersections, and the traffic didn't go away, it just got diverted around into the neighborhood streets, which is now causing other issues. The West Side Elevated Highway in New York City was not being maintained, and a dump truck in 1973 caused part of it to collapse. And what happened there was a street underneath it because it was elevated. What they did was they didn't create a new boulevard. They just put some amenities on the street that was already there underneath the elevated highway. And we all know Boston's Central Arterial. That was the big dig. That's where it was 3.5 miles of I-93, and they tunneled it. Well, of course, we can't tunnel here in Florida. The Alaskan Way Viaduct, the same thing. It's less than 2 miles, and they're tunneling now through Seattle, which, by the way, that is a toll road. If you use that toll road at peak hour, you're paying about $1.50 per mile. I've used I-95 Express for 10 miles, for 30 miles at 30 cents a mile. So I will leave this with you and appreciate, but I-275 needs capacity not to be torn down.
Thank you very much. All right, we'll make sure we get copies of that. We are going to move on to committee reports and online comments, and I believe Gina Torres, or maybe not Gina Torres, is going to present that.
Good morning, board members. Rich Clarendon. Gina is off presenting the Vision Zero initiative this morning, so I'm filling in for her. Very quickly, I will summarize what's going on with your advisory committees. They have been busy, and in the interest of time, I'm going to skip over some of the committees whose action items won't be coming to you until next month. But on your consent agenda today, there are 3 initiatives, projects: the Plant City Road Extension Study, the Kennedy Boulevard and West Hillsborough Avenue Multimodal Safety Reviews, and the Howard Franklin Bridge Trail Project proposal. All of those were reviewed and found favor with your committees. The Livable Roadways Committee made a motion to you to support the trail bridge on the Howard Franklin Bridge with a letter to DOT. The only action item on today's agenda is the DOT work program highlights, which were reviewed and approved by all of your committees. There was some discussion, including consideration of hurricane evacuation, smarter traffic signals, a request in the future to have a map to display these project locations so that people know where they're taking place. And then also the possibility of sharing the cost of railroad crossing improvements with CSX, which is the owner of the railroad, of course. The Citizens Advisory Committee last month had a tour of Port Tampa Bay, and that was very well received. And we thank the Port Tampa Bay and the Florida Aquarium for hosting the CAC. It was very educational and engaging for all the members. The Policy Committee was briefed on statutes defining school-related hazardous walking conditions. And members discussed the need for legislative changes on this and other topics, and that'll be coming to you at a future meeting. The School Transportation Working Group met in October and went over the Health and All Policies Walkability Report. They also heard about the 10 top schools that have been shortlisted for more detailed safety audits as part of the MPO school safety study. And they are setting up a meeting to review the school crossing guard program. Your Transportation Disadvantage Coordinating Board approved the annual operating report for the countywide coordinated system. The board does have concerns, and they've continued to express these concerns to the State Commission for Transportation Disadvantage on the undercounting of bus pass trips. This is where people receive bus passes and they can use them for any number of trips. But there is a concern about undercounting them due to the state requirements. They were also briefed on the Regional Transit Feasibility Plan and expressed a continuing need for more work trips for the transportation disadvantaged. The TBARTA MPO Chairs Coordinating Committee staff directors met and discussed the ongoing best practices study for regional governance, which has kicked off recently. Also, the upcoming Gulf Coast Safe Streets Summit and the guest speakers that are being lined up for that in February, at the end of February next year. And they also discuss the agenda for the December 1st meeting of the MPO chairs, including, which will go over regional priorities. And they have extended an invitation to the Transportation Management Area Leadership Group members to participate in that meeting. And that leadership group did meet and discuss the Regional Transit Feasibility Plan next steps. They also went over the TMA's regional priorities. They discussed the regional governance best practices study and the regional, the coming together in the region to form a long-range transportation plan on a regional scale. And there is a detailed summary of the full committee report in your meeting packet. As far as online comments are concerned, we've received 7 emails prior to today's meeting, 5 of which were from Dale Tyndall regarding traffic on I-275, which of course we've heard from him before. Also one from Matthew Suarez, who expressed the need for quality control over the state's supplemental environmental impact statement document and related planning products. And finally, we heard from Michael Lamarca, who wrote in supporting the need or supporting the filling in of mill striping on US 41, which makes bicycle riding in that bike lane much safer and a step towards Vision Zero. There were no comments coming in through the Facebook event for today's meeting, so that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you very much. If there are no additional questions or comments, we will move on to the consent agenda. We have a motion from Commissioner Merman, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco, for approval of the consent agenda. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, thank you very much. We have one action item this morning. It is the FDOT Annual Work Program highlights. Sarah McKinley from the MPO staff and Stephen Benson from the Florida Department of Transportation are both going to present this morning.
Good morning, Sarah McKinley, MPO staff. This morning, I'm going to give a quick overview of the Transportation Improvement Program and the process, and then Stephen Benson will go over the work program highlights this year, and then I'll wrap up showing how those reflect on our existing priorities, including the projects that still have outstanding funding. All right, so what is the Transportation Improvement Program? This is the 5-year work program. It is the first 5 years of the Long Range Transportation Plan. It highlights all the major changes in funding between the years. It shows all total costs for all the phases within each project that is funded. It is then reviewed by USDOT for authorizing federal funds. And we show our locally funded jurisdiction and agency projects as well for consistency and transparency purposes. What is the MPO's role? The MPO develops the priority projects, our wish list for funding. This is about $15 million a year for 2 federal programs. This includes the Transportation Alternatives Program as well as the Surface Transportation Program. And then we also coordinate with TBARTA, utilizing 2 state programs, the Transportation Regional Incentives Program, or the TRIP program, as well as the Sun Trail. As far as the projects go, the MPO can remove federally funded projects from the TIP, but it cannot direct how most of the funding is spent. So that was my brief overview, and then I'll let Stephen Benson show you the highlights.
Thank you, Sarah. There is a document that we prepared for you at the dais that this is the cover, and it's going to actually show you all of the projects in the work program. This presentation that I'm about to present is only going to include the highlights that changed from last year to this year. So the department's 5-year work program is a 5-year plan that includes public transit, seaport, airport and rail projects, as well as transportation planning, intelligent transportation, engineering, design, right-of-way acquisition, and construction for roadway projects. The work program covers fiscal year 19 to fiscal year 23. Fiscal year 19 begins on July 1 of next year and runs through June 30th of 2019. Year 1 is the proposed budget that is sent up to the legislature and the governor for approval, and years 2 through 5 are provided for program planning purposes. And our work program includes FDOT projects as well as local projects that FDOT is involved with. Projects take multiple years to complete, of course, as they move through the process. And below are the acronyms that I will use to indicate the funded phase for each project. Planning is project development, design, right-of-way, and construction. The current adopted work program runs from fiscal year 2018, which began on July 1st, until fiscal year 2022, which ends on June 30th. Every year on June 30th, the current year of the work program ends, and year 2 moves up to become the new current year. At this time, FDOT begins developing the new 5-year work program. The 4 common years are reviewed for changes and for cost adjustments, and a new 5th year is added to the program, and funding is allocated to the next phase of projects programmed in the prior 4 years. Then, new projects are added based upon state and local priorities. This is the point where we are currently at in the process. After the work program is updated by the department, it is considered tentative and a public hearing is held. Then the work program is submitted to the Florida legislature for review and then to the governor and the state secretary of transportation for review and adoption. After it's signed, the first year of projects is officially included in the state budget and the work program is considered adopted. So I will go over with you, was it a question? No, I'll go over with you our program development process and the priorities that we've added this year. Our first priority is to preserve existing projects that we have already funded, then to update cost estimates, and then to add new projects and phases based upon priorities. The projects that were selected are based upon safety and security, system preservation, pedestrian and bicycle, multimodal enhancements, operational improvements, and capacity improvements. And these projects are based upon MPO priorities, regional priorities, as well as FDOT priorities as well. For MPO priorities, you will see the MPO logo next to the project. As stated, these are new projects not previously presented to you, new phases of existing projects, select projects of interest for this board, and this is a preview of the changes to our work program that was made available on October 23rd, and public comments were completed on November 6th, and this board has until November 20th to provide comments to the department. So starting with the projects, the first is metropolitan planning for the MPO. Planning funds were added in 2023. Planning Model Studies Regional Travel Surveys Project, planning funds were added in 2019, 2022, and 2023. Under System Preservation, resurfacing projects on US 301, US 41, and I-75. Design was added in 2019 and construction was added in 2021. Another resurfacing project on Gandy Boulevard from east of the Gandy Bridge to west of South Bridge Street. This was a previously programmed project in 2019 that was stopped due to overlap with the Sullivan Extension project. Bridge repair and rehabilitation on I-75, US 41, as well as various locations throughout the county. Design and construction dollars were added throughout the work program. Railroad crossing maintenance projects on North Florida Avenue, North Tampa Street, North Nebraska Avenue, US 92. Construction and design dollars were added in 2023. And then on State Road 39 at US 92, this project was dropped due to a roadway transfer to the city of Plant City. Transit system preservation, bus replacements were added in 2023. Site improvements to the Marion Street Transfer Center were added in 2023. The HART CAD AVL system replacement, this is a transit ITS system overhaul. This was added in 2023. And the CNG duplex compressor replacement was added in 2023 as well. Safety projects, intersection street lighting for safety at various locations throughout the county. Construction funds were added in 2019. And then rail safety projects on North Boulevard and on Sly were added in 2019 as well. Safety and operational improvements on Hillsborough Avenue and on Kennedy Boulevard. These projects are MPO priorities. Construction for Hillsborough Avenue was added to 2020, and design and construction for Kennedy was added to 2019 and 2021. Complete streets, George Road from Dana Shores to Town and Country. This is an MPO priority. Design was added to 2023. Florabraska Avenue from Tampa Street to Nebraska Avenue. Design was dropped from 2022 because the project is being advanced. The department has added construction funding in 2019. And the Heights Mobility Plan, as well as the implementation of that plan, planning funds were added in 2018. This was advanced from 2021. And design was added in 2019. Walk and bike safety on West Reynolds Street in Plant City. Right-of-way was added in 2020 and construction was added in 2022. Morris Bridge Road, paved shoulders and bike lanes, as well as a trail from Fowler to 127th. Construction was added in 2021. Interchange improvements on I-275 from Kennedy Boulevard to Lois Avenue. This is a new third lane in both directions. Design build project was added in 2019. I-75 on-ramp from US 301. This was advanced from 2023 to 2019 to begin design. And I-4 from I-75 to Williams Road, the addition of auxiliary lanes. Construction was advanced from 2021 to 2018. Intersection improvements on US 301 at Bloomingdale, Martin Luther King at 50th Street, and US 41 from Pendola Point to south of Causeway Boulevard. These projects were programmed in 2023 for planning and then for construction for Martin Luther King. Traffic signal reconstructions on Hillsborough Avenue at Nebraska and Hillsborough Avenue at 34th Street. Construction was added to 2019. South Del Mabry at El Prado and at Interbay. Construction was added in 2023. And Fowler at 3 locations, Raintree, Gillette, and River Hills. Construction was added in 2023. Under the choices category, I-275 Greenway, this is a new cul-de-sac and new trailhead at West Gray Street. Construction was added in 2019. The Green Spine Cycle Track, construction was dropped in 2020 on the Phase 2B section, and construction was added on the Phase 3A section, which is the Nucio Parkway section. And this is because 2B was being advanced with local funds. The Green Artery, segments D and E, design was added in 2019. The Gandy Bridge Trail is added for design in 2020. And the South Coast Greenway from Palm River Bridge Bike Path and South Maydell Drive, design was dropped because it's being advanced by the local agency. Intermodal improvements at the Big Bend Channel and at Hooker's Point. These are seaport capacity projects. Funding was added in 2019. Transit capacity, the Tampa Bay Regional Transit Feasibility Plan, the next phase of that project is project development, and funds were added in 2019. Service development pilot funding was added for the Cross Bay Ferry service to begin in 2019 as well. Under highway capacity, interstate modification, this is the Section 5, I-275 from Lois to Willow. Construction funds were dropped from 2022. I-275, this is the Section 4, this is the West Shore interchange. Right-of-way funding that was previously programmed was deferred. And the funding in 2021 and 2022 are the only funding that remains for right-of-way. I-4 from the Selman Connector to Branch Forbes Road, interstate modification, Section 7, right-of-way was added in 2019. These are your 5-year totals for the various program areas. This does account for $1.4 billion over 5 years invested in Hillsborough County. And just a quick overview of the schedule. We did wrap up public comments on November 6th. This board has until November 20th to submit comments and objections, and then throughout the beginning of next year, this will be under review by the legislature and the Florida Transportation Commission, and slated for adoption on July 1. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Questions? Commissioner White.
Thank you. I'm sure we've gone over this before, but if you can just refresh my memory on what we're looking to accomplish with this George Road priority and perhaps the origin of that priority being inserted into the plan.
Sure. That's a great question because we haven't talked about that on this board in some time. But it does come out of a previous study looking at how do we connect the Town and Country Greenway, which is also connected with an on-road bicycle facility, over to the Upper Tampa Bay Trail. How do you connect that over to the Courtney Campbell Trail so that you have a complete regional system? And so we worked with the local community to find the best route, and the community's preferred location is with complete street enhancements. So you have safer walking and cycling on George Road, which is a road that has a number of residences that are facing onto it. It's experiencing some cut-through traffic from folks who are trying to avoid the veterans. And so making that just a little bit more walk and bike friendly is the goal of that project. And we looked at that for health impacts as well.
And that study dates to when? When was that study done?
So I think we completed that spring a year ago.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Merman.
Thank you. We had quite a bit of conversation about this at the board, and I don't think any other members were here. They were planning to connect at Memorial Highway, which is like a speedway racetrack, and I felt the residents did not feel it would be safe. So we moved over to George Road because we felt that that would actually even be a better connection with the Upper Tampa Bay Trail. But it's to really connect Upper Tampa Bay Trail to the Courtney Campbell Causeway.
Very good. Thank you.
Commissioner Kemp.
Thank you. I'd just like to recognize FDOT. I think it's great that we are having a third lane at the interchange, which I think is one of the biggest bottlenecks in the entire region. And I know that was sped up. I still will ask. I know what the answer is, but to look at a fourth lane to just get the traffic through there and parallel with the bridge at that point. But I'm very happy to see the third lane, and I know that was a request that was made. I appreciate the responsiveness and the speed up on that, because I think it's extraordinarily important for moving traffic through the region. The second, and I'm also pleased to see the funding for the Cross Bay Ferry, at least to start to that. I think we need to recognize our ferry possibilities in this region and deploy those as we have our water resources. One of the, I had asked and discovered this through Ms. Alden, was one of the other areas that I have real concerns about is US 41. and the CSX crossing at US 41. And I had started to ask questions about, I had heard that there was, and I haven't had any basis for this, but a state law that required crossings to be limited to 10 minutes. I know we can't bring transit down US 41 because of the CSX blocking the way. I've sat there before and you don't see the trains move because they're realigning, and they do it often, frequently during the day. So I was very pleased to find out, and I thank you, Ms. Halden, and with the MPO and FDOT for the National Highway Freight Program. I understand that there's $130 million there to do an elevated bridge. I just think it's extremely important for the region. Again, a huge bottleneck, and it makes US 41 so unusable and so unreliable. I understand that the reason I had asked, the reason it's not on this list, the 5-year list, is it's 6 years out. And I would just like to say I'm very pleased to see that project. I'm wondering about the possibilities of moving that up, because I think it's, again, a critical way of moving people and freight and goods. And so I'd like to just put that out there.
Sure. There is a project development and environment study underway to look at that section of 41, I think from Causeway all the way down. And it includes the overpass for the rail line as well as an overpass for Causeway. Those are being evaluated because they are pretty close in proximity. There was previous funding allocated in our last cycle, so it will be in the map that you have to kind of get that all the way through construction. And I believe construction is funded in the next 5 years. And we are trying to move that up to an earlier construction date.
Commissioner Merman.
Thank you. I wanted to also ask, because I've had many conversations with FDOT about US 41, and what is the status of the PD&E and the widening? Because I didn't see it on the work program, so are you still planning on adding that in at some point?
It is still, there are various sections that are under study. Is this the study south of?
South County.
South of Ruskin, yeah. That PD&E is still underway, and so as soon as we have a recommended alternative that comes out of that, then we'll be able to fund it for design and construction.
But I also thought it was from Big Bend to the Causeway, that they were also, I mean, there's two different ones.
Yes, there are, and they're both at different time frames, and the one that's further north, that goes from Big Bend north, is further along in the process.
Okay, are they evaluating dedicated lanes for bus rapid transit or anything like that in the PD&E?
We can look into that and get back to you.
Okay.
Exactly what's being
I'd
evaluated.
like to know, because I think it's important for movement. There are so many people moving to South County. I know I've expressed an interest also in the express lanes on 75. And I imagine, you're in the study process of that?
I think we'll actually cover that in our Tampa Bay Next update for you.
Okay, very good. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Kemp.
And just one more thing, I just wanted to, I think your presentation today, as compared to the policy committee meeting, was so well,
Good.
you know,
Much well organized.
Yes. So I just like to thank you for that. The only other thing would be, I think if you could put a map to the side of it, and we could get a little bit of a geographic perspective. But I think that organization was way more fruitful.
Organization was much better.
Yes, we had asked at the policy committee for some additional detail, and this is really a very helpful way of giving it to us. I just had one question about your presentation about the Gandy Bridge Trail. So what I'm seeing here is that there's a PD&E in 2020 for the segment from 4th Street in Pinellas County to West Shore.
Yes.
Does that mean that people can anticipate a bicycle and pedestrian trail across all 3 bridges in the coming years? Because we already have one on Courtney Campbell. You've added one on Howard Franklin, and now we're adding one on Gandy as well?
There are active projects or studies on both. Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay.
All 3.
So I think that's great. I think we look forward to seeing that. Anyone else? Questions, comments before Sarah McKinley comes back with the rest of the presentation?
Thank you.
Okay.
I apologize. We have Allison Stettner with the Turnpike here to present a very short update on Turnpike projects that are in Hillsborough County.
All right.
Thank you so much.
morning.
We're with the District 7 presenting our work program as well today. It should be provided. It's this worksheet here with the green banner. If you do not have it, I have lots of extra copies. I just want to point out that we're adding two new projects that affect the Hillsborough region, the design of the Sun Coast up to 52. So those are going into years 22 and 23. It's $30 million approximately. It's so starting with this first section from Van Dyke up to 54 and 22. So with that, that is the end of the Turnpike work program. I'll take any questions.
Any questions or comments? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Alrighty. All right, so this is sort of the timeline that we looked at last year for the TIP process. And this is what we're about to start once we adopt these tentative work program highlights. As you see, February timeframe, we meet with all our jurisdictions. We coordinate what their existing priorities and new priorities are. And then in March, we ask for a letter stating those priorities. We provide that to the policy committee. Last year, we actually had a roundtable where we invited all of our jurisdictional partners to come in and speak of each of those priorities. We then provide that to District 7, and those get worked into the work program, and they start gaming them pretty much immediately. And then last year in June, we had the TIP adoption where we adopted not only the document, but as well the priorities. Our priorities are developed just as our long-range transportation plan is. They're divided into 5 work programs. Those are preserving the system, reducing crashes and vulnerability, minimizing traffic for drivers and shippers, real choices when not driving, and then our major capacity projects for economic growth. As you can see, there is a number of Safe Route to School projects that were funded. We're continuing to work with the School Transportation Working Group to prioritize and identify new schools to submit for those fundings. And in this presentation, I'm really going to focus on those in purple. That's still what's outstanding. As you can see, the Big Bend interchange, the funding for that went from $6 million up to $10.4 million this year because it's accounting for the widening of Big Bend from Covington Garden to Simmons Loop. So there's still additional funding that's needed for that project. The Upper Tampa Bay Trail, we're continuing to work with county staff on identifying the right-of-way for that, as well as the South Coast Greenway. They're working on some right-of-way agreements with TICO and other entities. We're continuing to prioritize the Green Spine cycle track. There are 3 additional phases that we are going to continue to move forward, as well as prioritizing the streetcar extensions and the outcome out of that study. The West River Greenway, we're continuing to work with city staff on getting some additional real estate agreements with that, as well as the South Tampa Greenway. We're working with city staff on a 25-year extension agreement with MacDill Air Force Base. There's a number of Plant City requests we're still working on. The PD&Es have been funded actually the design, for the 3 intersection improvements. We're still prioritizing the construction funding for that, as well as widening of Sam Allen Road. The 2 roadway extension studies that you just approved, we're prioritizing the PD&Es for those studies as well. One of the requests that is in the letter that we submitted to you is the Davis Road extension. There was $1 million earmarked for this that was removed. We're asking that funding be reinstated, and noticing that the city is still working on getting the additional $3.8 million needed for the construction of that. There's also a couple of transportation alternative applications that we're waiting on from Temple Terrace. This includes the shared use path from Temple Terrace to USF. I know that we've been working with the Innovation District on this and sort of nailing down what this project's going to consist of. We also just completed the MPO study for Bullard Parkway, so hopefully that can move forward as ATA application, as well as the light vehicle footbridge over the Hillsborough River. Thank you. As you noted, or as Stephen stated, I guess, there were a number of the HART requests that were funded. There's, in the next coming year, we will be moving the fare box replacement up into preserving the system, so that'll get a higher ranking of priority, so hopefully we can get that funded as well. And then here's some additional HART priorities that will still remain on the list as well. The Port Tampa Bay priorities, these mostly reflect the Channel District Master Plan that they've done. Those priorities are moving forward as part of their Tiger Grant that they've submitted. And these are some of the additional off-port priorities. As Stephen spoke to, there's a number of US 41 projects coming in line. Some of those are still waiting for the PD&Es to be done, but we're still continuing to prioritize these projects as well. As far as the Tampa-Hillsborough Expressway Authority, the construction of the connection from Nucio Parkway to Adamo Drive, that's going to connect the Selman Greenway and the Green Spine Cycle Track. We are working with City and DOT to get those that constructed along with the Green Spine that'll go along Nucio Parkway. These are the priorities that have come from some MPO studies that we've done. We are continuing to work with the city at looking at Columbus Drive and completing that two-way conversion, as well as moving forward with the water transit feasibility study that we continue to prioritize. These are the priorities from the TMA leadership group. As you know, with TB Next, or Tampa Bay Next, the SCIS continues. The Howard Franklin Bridge construction is moving forward in FY21. We are very happy with the interim project on I-275 that'll help with operations and hopefully ease that bottleneck, as well as the right-of-way being pushed out to our future years. We are also very focused on the outcome of the regional transit feasibility plan, and I'm very happy about the $5 million that's been funded for the next steps for that, as well as the Cross Bay Ferry that's continuing to be a priority. You all have the letter that I submitted to you. There are 4 comments that we had. Again, the US 41 from Pandela Point to Causeway Boulevard. This is widening from 5 to 6 lanes. We're just sort of trying to clarify what this project is, making sure that it doesn't need an LRTP update. We also are looking at restoring that earmark funding for Davis Road. The county asked about the project over the Alafai River at US 41 and whether or not that will include a multi-use trail. And then also, we had a request from the Livable Roadways Committee, and this is a request that we've continued to get as staff when we present the Transportation Improvement Program to them, and this is sort of how do we quantify the walk-bike improvements, especially when resurfacing is coming through. A lot of the funds are just stated as resurfacing, but they do include some bike enhancements along that. So we've been working internally as staff to sort of figure this out, but we're also going to hope that we can work with DOT to sort of better quantify these. So that's the comments that we had. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Any questions or comments from board members at this time? Seeing none, we do need to approve the letter that that mentions the items that Ms. McKinley just highlighted. So we would entertain a motion for approval of that. We have a motion from Mayor Lott, seconded by Commissioner White. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have 3 status reports today. The first is the Tampa Bay Next quarterly update, and Bill Jones is here from the Florida Department of Transportation to give that presentation. Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning, Councilman, members of the board. My name is Bill Jones, Director of Transportation Development with the Department of Transportation, and wanted to give you a snapshot of where we're at with our Tampa Bay Next activities through current. As we go through, We literally are almost out there every day and every night meeting with civic associations, communities, and groups, churches, and we're having great feedback is what we're getting. So I wanted to spend a moment on this slide here, and it's in your packet there, talk about a few of the things we're hearing and what we're trying to do about it as we go forward. We talked about multimodal centers. Right now we're trying to align, the regional transit feasibility plan is ongoing. We've talked about intermodal center studies that we're actually undertaking right as we speak. We're kicking off some of the scoping of that. We've expanded that, and we'll look at a graphic later. So we've expanded that down into St. Petersburg, up through Wesley Chapel, because of what we've heard about the future of multimodal centers and where transit and opportunities are. Multimodal options, it was mentioned a few times. We've programmed, we're very excited about the $5 million that we programmed in 2019 for the next step of the regional transit feasibility plan. Technology solutions. I think it was Councilman Cohen, we had a discussion 10 months or so ago. What about technology? Bring that into the equation. So we formed our own mobility innovation task team internal to the DOT as well as on top of what we do in the central office. We're working with the city of Tampa, Hillsborough County. We're looking at smart city initiatives, not just transportation, but what would it take to do a smart city in a smart region? And that ties in everything from hospitals and economic pieces to transportation as well. So we're moving forward with that. It was mentioned about intelligent signals and how we can prioritize signals. That means we all need to intelligently tie those together as well. So we're moving forward with a lot of the technology aspects. And then obviously one of the bigger items, neighborhood preservation. While our growth continues tremendously, we still need to preserve the nature and the culture of our neighborhoods and our region. So it was mentioned we advanced the Tampa Heights study. We literally have walked the corridor, Florida and Tampa, with members of the community, talk about what we can put in our scope and what we can look at with that. We also created, and I'll show you a little bit later, some of the concepts that we're looking at for downtown. How do we still move folks around the area, but trying to minimize impacts as much as possible? Safety is a great charge, and I'll echo our new Secretary Gwynn. That's our priority through here. So everything from complete streets, when we do road safety audits, walking items, what can we individually do through our transportation system to help with safety? And using technology, better designs, along with that to have 21st century designs meet with the needs of safety as well. We also heard about the transportation. Sometimes it's an enigma. It's a huge flow chart of activities and items. We've put together a Citizens Transportation Academy that we have live webinars with questions and answers. It's actually on our website now, tampabaynext.com. Talk about everything from how's transit funded, how's a roadway project funded, how does the MPO tie to what the DOT does, long-range transportation planning, and we embrace our partners, Ms. Alden, we've had Ray Shiramonte with T-BARDA, we've had Ford Pinellas join us as guest speakers to help us talk through the process, because it really is going to take us all to get this done in the Tampa Bay area. And those are on, I mentioned, on the website for your viewing there. What we're talking about with the communities, same things we've talked about here. We know that our designs are outdated and old in a lot of our areas, 1960s. Demand, we talked about 60,000 people a year move to this literally region here. And we talk about choices. We know that in 2040, the projection is Tampa is going to be about the size of Miami. You look at Miami, they have Tri-Rail, they have people movers, they have transit, they have express lanes. They have all this. We don't have any of that in Tampa Bay region, so we need to move on those items. So we talk about choices, a lot of transit discussions, walkable, pedestrian, land use, how that can all tie to this. And because we want to get a project that we can move forward with consensus. Part of the things we heard, and we talked about it briefly, or it was mentioned briefly, what we're doing with the Howard Franklin Bridge was a byproduct of some of the things that we heard from the community on this. The improved incident management. The original plan for Howard Franklin Bridge was going to be one express lane in each direction because it ties to the gateway in Pinellas County that has an express lane system, and 4 general use non-tolled lanes southbound. We've received citizen input that incident management, even though there'd be shoulders, if we go to 2 express lanes in each direction, that provides better incident management with Hurricane Irma as well, with evacuations route. We've heard a lot from Pinellas County, which was literally about a week before we decided to make this change. Part of that was because of Hurricane Irma and the evacuation route. Also, better accommodate the future of transit, and I'll look at that in a moment. I'll show you briefly that. Prepare for autonomous vehicles. We have the Florida Autonomous Vehicle Summit next week here in the Tampa Bay region, if you haven't seen that. And what we're hearing from experts and talking to people is dedicated ways might be where they want to start using this for more beta testing and the way of where autonomous vehicles will go. So it allows for that opportunity. Also anticipate future demand as we grow. And then the bike ped facility, when I arrived in my position about 10 months ago or so, there were 2 letters on my desk, one from Ford Pinellas and one from Hillsborough MPO, asking for pedestrian accommodations. So I'm happy to say that we were able to do that now with this new design. You should have all received an email from us or a link to this when we unveiled this several Mondays ago, but I just did want to briefly show it for your pleasure again and for members of the new to the board. You'll see the structure to the left is the new bridge that we're proposing. The 2 express lanes in each direction, the 4 general use lanes to the south, and then also the bicycle pedestrian facility. Did want to point out, it's a little darker, you can see it. We would strengthen the outside pier of the most interior piece of that bridge there you see. And if you look at the bottom slide, it shows a set of rail. What that means is we're going to strengthen that bridge when we build that, such that it can handle the load, the capacity up to a light rail system. It doesn't have to be light rail, but it can handle the load up to a light rail system. Also wanted to point out express buses. It was spoken about express buses. Commissioner Merman, I'll show you a graphic in a moment, kind of our whole system possibilities. But express buses as well. We've been speaking to Pinellas County about possibilities of bringing express bus all the way down, possibly even to St. Petersburg itself. This allows express buses to literally get in our system as soon as it's built, no charge, and use that. And it's truly more of an express route at 45, 50 miles an hour versus fighting the traffic that's out there now. So next week, we have public hearings, November 14th and 16th. There's going to be one on the Pinellas County side and then one in Hillsborough County side. I encourage you to join us if you have time. So we're going to hold that hearing. And then what I'd like to do is briefly go through an animation here, if you have that on your screens there. This is the existing setup of the bridge system. And the 1960s bridge, that's the current northbound bridge that you drive today. It is going to become structurally deficient, so by statute we need to replace that. It also has other concerns. It's, I say it's too low for wave action and other activities. So what we're proposing to do, we build the north, I'm sorry, this is moving on its own here. Take it back. Okay, so let me grab this. So this is what we're going to build in the future for, okay, I've tried. Give me 2 seconds.
You spoiled the surprise.
I know. Bump, straight to the end. Okay, now I know it's timed. I will roll with it here. Is that from existing? Okay, so we have the 1960s bridge that we talked about, 1990s. We're going to move forward. It'll construct in 2020. Start about September of 2019, where we're going to open the price proposals for the new bridge. We'll then move the traffic over to the express lanes, put the southbound traffic over there, as you see, and then you'll see the green pedestrian bridge that we have there. We'll then move to the, here we go. Then we move the northbound traffic over. If you see that graphic, the blue over on the traffic moving northbound, we'll restripe. We'll then go to remove the old 1960s bridge, and then we'll have a functioning and opening facility there. So I apologize for the read. This was discussed. We're also excited that we were able to advance the interim operational improvements. 1 lane in each direction is going to go through there, so we have 3 lanes coming through the area, both southbound and northbound. Something else I did want to point out, though, as well, if you look at the loop ramp coming around, we think that's going to gain great operational benefits, not only coming from the veterans, but then also anybody coming from State Road 60. You'll see that when you come around there, right now you need to merge pretty quickly in, and that's another bottleneck. We're going to have that outside part of the loop ramp be able to continue all the way through into the 4th lane, never have to merge. And that inside part of the loop ramp, even though you do have a merge, we're going to widen the State Road 60 bridge as well as the West Shore Bridge to allow that merge to go all the way. We can go all the way to Dale Mabry before you'd have to make a choice to get back over. So we're looking at significant operational improvements as we try and come up with our ultimate improvement in this area. Question also comes up. We're going to have that operational improvement completed about 2020, somewhere in there. The Howard Franklin Bridge is going to start in about January-ish 2020. I said September, but then once you get to construction. So the operational improvement will be completed prior to the express lanes coming off the Howard Franklin Bridge. So I did want to point this out, that the express lanes can come across and they will be able to transition into our I-275 system. And we'll sign it such that you can get across to the Kennedy exit as well as take, so there's no weave movement. We're going to take it past that, and then you can have it merge into 275 with the other express lane coming through there. So it's fully integrated into the operational improvement. Wanted to show kind of a big picture where we're at before we talk about the SEIS in general. We're looking at a lot of things through the corridor and through with the community input. Commissioner Merman, you mentioned about I-75 and I-4. The green and the purple lines there, I'll use the colors. We're moving forward with PD&E studies as we speak, community output. We're going to be moving forward with workshops soon on those, and I think we have spring of 19 even looking through alternatives. So we're moving forward with the geometry of that, what those would look like, because what we're hearing is, again, with the growth, we still need to move traffic around, but what if we move those express lanes off 275, if that's one of the preferred alternatives, moved it over to 75, all the way up through Wesley Chapel, and actually talking to Pasco County, they'd like us to actually take that up 52, maybe even to 50 as an alternative to look through, all the way down as far as we can get it, down to Moccasin Wallow if we can, Sun City Center area. That allows an express bus to get in that system, go all the way from there, all the way to St. Pete without touching anything at 45 miles an hour as an alternative. So we're moving forward with that independent of the SEIS. So let's get to the SEIS update. That's the piece from the West Shore interchange over to the downtown interchange that we've discussed. We had 2 workshops, October the 9th and the 10th. We had approximately 250 attendees. We had about 60 public comments that we're collating now and going to go through. We had members of the MPO with us. We had members of the transit agencies with us. Have a holistic approach to how we're looking at transportation. Also, the heights study. We talked a little bit about that to folks when we were in the room there. So we're going to go through these workshops, and what we did is, and originally we were going to try and go to a workshop early 2019. We're getting such great feedback, and we're going to look at a lot of alternatives. We're going to push that probably a little bit to the right because we're getting such I guess, good food to really work with and good activity. So we're going to move that a little bit, probably late 18. Throughout this whole next year, we're going to be looking through alternatives and working with the community. Then public hearing by 2019 to go with a preferred alternative is the plan now. So I did want to show you a couple of the downtown interchange concepts. We talked about the community aspect. And the first one, this one's going to be very familiar to you. This was originally what TBX was. It was just a project, whereas TB Next is much more than that. It's a process and looking at a whole program. You'll see all the colors and the lines. This fixed the geometric concerns. This fixed the safety concerns. This brought express lanes east-west as well as north-south leg there. But of course, we did hear the community aspect was not taken into account when we rolled this back off the shelf from the 1990s. So with that, we then looked at another alternative that we had at community working groups and we talked with. What if we removed the express lanes from the north? So what this graphic shows is still have express lanes east-west, full reconstruction of most of that area still. So you'll see all the way through the Hillsborough River, there's still significant impacts to the community through the Tampa Heights area and so forth. But there are no express lanes to the north from the Seminole Heights area. But we challenged ourselves a little bit more from what we're hearing from folks. What is it really going to take to get through this area? Because 30 years from now, do we really, we're projecting what some of the impacts are going to be, but what if the future has the more transit, the autonomous vehicles? So we looked at these alternatives here, where you'll see the colored are the only new pieces of the interstate system. To the median on both sides of the downtown interchange. However, to make this work and get through, we call this the south option. And what that means is we would leave the interchange to itself. We would not impact anywhere in Tampa Heights. We would take we call it the south option because it comes across from the Selman Expressway area if you're kind of going right to left. It comes across, and then it skirts to the south side of the existing interstate. It would be an aerial system. We call it a viaduct on pier systems to eliminate as much right-of-way impact as possible, significantly reducing that while still meeting the need of moving folks and also having an express bus type of system. We call that the south option that we rolled out to the community and talked with them about. And then the north option, I just changed. Very similar. It provides an elevated system trying to minimize impacts, but it goes to the north side, and you'll see it does impact some of the Tampa Heights area on this side versus Ybor, the properties that would be impacted and any impacts we would have. So we're looking vigorously at those right now, running the traffic, looking at trying to minimize impacts as we go through here. So I wanted to give you an update of some of the options we're looking at through there. How's this tie into I-275 North? We heard about the boulevard discussion that the community has embraced and wants us to look at. The boulevard, it's going to take a lot of work from all of us to look at. We're working with the MPO on what that would mean for long-range transportation planning. The boulevard's also predicated on a robust transit system, and we have to move a lot of cars off of this system to make the boulevard work. How do we do that? Maybe it's move a lot of them over to the I-75 corridor with the express lanes we talked about, maybe moving them over there. There's transit. We talked about tying this study in with the regional transit feasibility plan, as well as the Tampa Heights study. So holistically looking at what we can do with this corridor. So over the next year, you're also going to see us going out, this is not tied to the SEIS, but I did want to let you know we're going to be going out to these communities, talking about what we can do on this northern section as well. So these outreach activities will be going on through this. And we have another community working group December 13th on that. I really appreciate it. I just wanted to comment. Thank you for the partnership with Hillsborough MPO, City of Tampa, Hillsborough County. It's been fantastic as we go through this. You know, some of the best solutions come from a lot of different opinions. So we're embracing that and moving forward while still trying to meet the needs of the area. Community outreach. I mentioned the Citizens Transportation Academies we have. These are listed on on the board there or on the screen. Talks about some of the things we've talked about. So if any of your staff or you would like to go through those, they're about 30 minutes to 60 minutes long. I kind of sit through lunch and I listen through them when I wasn't available. Like I said, Beth and some others have joined us, and we've got some great feedback on those. We're also tweaking a little bit how we're doing our community outreach. Community working groups, we set up community working groups, 6 areas in this region. We want to start going a little bit more to, we're still doing small group activities, but we want to enhance our community working groups, go where the people are at versus having to come where we're at. So we're going to enhance that process as well as we go forward. And here's the next big opportunity we want to work with, workforce development. No matter what we do in the Tampa Bay area, whether it's VNIC, whether it's somebody else with their organization, whether it's horizontal construction, roadway, we have a lot of work coming to the Tampa Bay region. What can we do for workforce development? So I will tell you, we joined COMPTO, which is the Council of Minority Transportation Officials, just 2 weeks ago. Last night, we met with their national president, as well as others from COMPTO here. Actually, we met them at Florida Polytechnical University, talk about how we can put a robust workforce development plan in action. We have a lot of people in our area. I think the unemployment rate's around 3.3% Tampa in whole, which is great. But some of these affected communities we're going through, they're upwards of 8, 9, maybe even higher percent of unemployment. What can we do to help with that? And I'm not just talking about, we have programs right now where we require contractors to have a certain number of on-the-job trainees and so forth. We also have construction career days. We try and get people interested. But there's a gap in there we're trying to fill. That how can we help maybe put a small business plan together, put together community college plans, curriculum. We're looking into that, how we can help maybe partner with the industry, both the construction industry, the department, see what we can do to help enhance that. So you're going to probably hear a lot of this from community members. We're going out and talking to a lot of the members in the communities, the pastor groups. COMPTO, we're very happy to have joined that to help us with this as well. So we think this is a great opportunity in the Tampa Bay area as well as beyond. Also wanted to mention transit. I think most of us, or most of this was covered. Central Avenue BRT, though, down in Pinellas County. Those in the TMA heard a lot about this last time. But we have this is the first BRT system that we're going to put on the ground in this area. It's going to be down in Pinellas County. It's going to be across First Avenue South and First Avenue North along Central Avenue to get to the beaches from the St. Pete area. So we're happy to participate in that as we go forward. Cross Bay Ferry, you heard 2019, we have funds programmed towards that. The intermodal center studies, we're looking to expand that. Express bus and express lane study that we had. TICO expansion study that we helped fund. Innovator circulator pilots. We think there's going to be a lot more activity on this. The West Shore Alliance is moving forward with circulators on their piece. Of course, we are happy to participate in the Downtowner and others. So those will continue. And how do we tie all this together with the regional transit feasibility plan is our next piece. And then actually, if you're available or if you see it next week, I think Senator Brandis will be there, if not others. The Marion Autonomous Shuttle Pilot Project, those facilities, or at least the first shuttle will be delivered to this area, and it will be on display next week, and it will start running by the end of the year. So we're very excited about what that can do. BRT in the future might be autonomous, but for now, we're going to start somewhere in this area, and we're going to be a trend center. So we're excited about that coming as well. mentioned just briefly, and I think this is the last slide. I'll sorry I didn't make this briefer than I did. Innovation technology. I'm a big advocate. I'm pushing the limit on what we can do for different types of interchange designs. Let's design things to the 21st century. As well as using technology. So we're looking at every aspect we can. We've partnered with THEA with their connected vehicle pilot. We want to be that partner for this as we move forward. I mentioned working with the City of Tampa. They're extremely aggressive on working with this. City of St. Petersburg as well, and then Hillsborough County working with them. So we want to really bring this into and move forward with our team with this as well. So. With that, again, I just really appreciate the partnership. It's going to take us all to get this done. There's no silver bullet. Roadway and transit, land use planning, technology. It's going to take all of this to get this done. So we're a proud partner. And let me know if you have any questions, or you can contact me anytime.
Commissioner Merman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Bill, I've seen more progress from you all in 6 months than I've seen in the last 6 years. And I just want to commend you for really helping us to move transportation forward in this county. It's much needed, as you know, because your list is long. But I want to congratulate the Secretary. You guys are really listening, and you're getting things done. And I think that for me, for my constituents, especially in South County, I'm happy that you're recognizing the growth down there and how important the movement of the people, South County, I-4, all the way up to Wesley Chapel. I mean, it's just critical that we find ways to relieve that congestion. And working with us on the Big Bend interchange, I know you've done that, and the Apollo Beach extension, you've really helped us move forward fast, and that's what we've needed. So I appreciate the effort. I really do. I know you get a lot of naysayers, and I appreciate those comments too, but from my seat up here, I'm really starting to see progress, and I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Councilman Maniscalco and then Commissioner Kemp.
Thank you very much. I saw on one of the slides, it showed not having express toll lanes going north and south, through the Seminole Heights area.
Yes.
But the district that I represent is West Shore, West Tampa, Seminole Heights, and all that, and the interstate goes right through. Talking to the folks in West Tampa, and the possibility of widening the interstate again, they just got through where Dale Mabry and 275 was all redone in the last few years, and how it affected them and neighborhoods and whatnot and traffic. I have yet to meet people in the district that I represent, very, very few. It would be, I had one lady tell me, we need something in the Beach Park area to alleviate traffic. But the other folks throughout West Tampa, throughout Seminole Heights, they don't want these express toll lanes because it means widening the interstate. Another thing is right-of-way acquisition. Once FDOT takes over a property, I've seen some that where buildings are there, they're demolished, regardless of what's going to happen in the future, if these express lanes are going to be built or not built. The point is, once you demolish something, you take away that history, you take away that structure, and you can't bring it back. That's a concern they have because it changes the makeup of certain neighborhoods. You go through the I-275, I-4 intersection, and I was driving through 2 nights ago and trying to imagine how can we fix this without having to continue widening, the interstate in that area, because where the congestion is, where it bottlenecks is, 275 going south connecting to I-4, it's that one lane that stalls and holds up traffic for no reason. It's not like there's a stoplight there. It's just people taking that curve to connect to I-4 carefully. Is there a way to fix that working inwards? Is there enough space on the existing interstate without having to continue acquiring right-of-way and having to widen it? And then going I-4 to 275 north, it all merges. I know we have that downtown lane that's always free-flowing, but it merges into one lane going to 275 north, and it holds everything up. I remember as a kid there was a middle school, I think it was George Washington Middle School, right there at Columbus, that no longer exists because of the construction that was done to fix Malfunction Junction the first time. And all that's left is a bus stop with the top of the school as like a reminder of the school that was there, the brick structure. But are there ways to work if you are going to build the express lanes? Because looking at 275 through West Tampa, there's such a wide centerpiece there. I know that's for a rail in the future, autonomous vehicles, whatever it is in the future, but I mean, if you're going to do this, can you do this without having to acquire more right-of-way? Because the people that I talk to in these neighborhoods, they're constantly concerned because it's property values, because they've learned and looked at history at what the interstate did through Ybor City and through the Heights and through West Tampa, and how much damage it is. Because if you look at it, it's blocks of homes, I mean, people's memories and where they grew up, are gone because of this massive interstate construction. I don't know if they're able to sustain, more construction coming through, another widening of the interstate. They're concerned for their property values, the character of their neighborhoods, certain structures that are demolished, that you can't bring back once they're gone. I know the end goal is to move traffic and to move cars. And we've grown so quickly as a city, and we're expecting so many more people coming into Hillsborough County. Another thing that comes up, the streetcar study, that we've brought up, extending it north, going into the Heights. I look at it as it's a Band-Aid. It's something to reach out to the Tampa Heights community, for example, where they can take the streetcar downtown, not have to worry about parking. So you're taking some cars off the street, but what about the rest of the city? I just don't feel that these express lanes, the sacrifice that the neighborhoods make, will it be worth it for the amount of cars that it may take off the road?
Great comments, Councilman. First, most of actually West Tampa and Seminole Heights, we are going to widen to the inside. Any improvements we do, so there are not going to be any more impact. There are going to be no more impacts to West Tampa or the Seminole Heights area with this improvement. So now what we're looking at is the graphics I showed you. What if we significantly reduce those impacts coming through the actual interchange itself? So we met with members of West Tampa during our workshop because they had those same questions. Show me where I'm at and show me how I'm impacted. And we went to them, showed them, they were pleased that there is no actually additional impacts. We're going to widen to the inside. Once we get to the downtown interchange, that's where we're going to try and get elevated to get that through that area. Right-of-way acquisition, though, we do have. What we are looking at is we're actually meeting with members of the community as we speak. What can we do with those properties, short-term and long-term? Because even if we do go to a construction project, it's going to be several years out before we get this funded and we come to consensus. So we are working. Matter of fact, we have meetings set up, and we've been discussing with members of the community what to do with those as we go through. And there's potential opportunities, like you said, if at the end of the day the consensus is reached that we go to one of those, let's say a skinnier option, the very minor impacts, or I call it minor, a lot less impacts than we had. What do we do with the rest of the properties that we did have? Those would be discussions that we can have. So I did want to let you know that West Tampa and Seminole Heights, we don't have any impacts. We're looking to try and even reduce. We used to have ponds up there. Well, if we don't have the express lanes to the north, we don't even need the ponds up through there. So now it's a matter of we're trying to work through the Tampa Heights, Ybor City area. How can we minimize that, still do what we have to do for express buses, moving cars and vehicles, and tying that to the transit? So. Yeah,
because the people in, VM, Ybor City, I mean, look how the neighborhood is changing. We have a lot more residential than we've had in decades. And people that are buying these older homes that are closer to the interstate, they call them their forever homes. They don't plan to move in 5 years because the interstate's going to come through for whatever other reason. They buy it because they specifically chose that neighborhood and they plan to stay there the rest of their lives. At least the people that I talk to. And I would feel the same way. You want a historic bungalow, whatever it is, that's what you want. You have certain tastes and what it is. And a home purchase is usually the biggest purchase one makes in their lifetime. That's the American dream. And to have that put in jeopardy, their concerns are significant. They're real. You change somebody's life with that. But yeah, if you're having these meetings, that's good. The communication is out there. I need to attend more, whether it's my district or not. I represent. As a whole, we represent the people of the city of Tampa. But minimize the impact. Do the right thing. We have to learn from the 1950s and 60s when the interstate just barreled through, and it really significantly affected how the city is in general. So moving forward, I'm going to be attending more of these meetings and reaching out to more people. I know you're listening. The discussion is being had, but let's make the right decision because it's going to affect generations.
Absolutely. Through this next year, we're looking forward to have those dialogue with the right-of-way, with the acquisition, what the ultimate product is. So thank you.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, we have Commissioner Kemp and then Commissioner White and then Mr. Mechanic.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also want to just recognize the work on the part of FDOT. I think that this has been very transformational from what I've seen. I feel like there's a listening going on and a lot of investment being done in redesign. I didn't have the concern. I appreciate Councilman Maniscalco's concerns. I always do. But I didn't have the concern about widening the expressway because as I understood it, all this infrastructure from the start was going to happen down the widened middle. As you know, over and over again, repeatedly, I have talked about I-275 north of downtown in the interchange. I didn't want to see an interchange that was massively more huge by having a dual infrastructure of express lanes as well as our regular general lanes. And I especially liked, I don't know if I've seen that third or whatever option it was, but where the, with the elevated, I think we have to start thinking about that and of course slimming our road and opening up to the extent that we can our grid that has also our historic grid that was lost back in the day. So I appreciate all the efforts and the redirection to look at the express option of 75 and I-4 because I think that makes the most sense, 75 I-4 across to 275. My other, and I'm just very pleased to see also, I think the move on the different transit options. I want to look more about kind of the smaller internal transit projects that we could get in Hillsborough County. I think that's really important for us to be moving smaller BRT options to move people in ways that we can. As I said, the CSX, moving that train up and opening up 41 as a transit option, it doesn't really exist as that now. I think could be wonderful for land use within the urban service area, and moving traffic because it's just untenable 41 at this time as a transit or even as a driving option. I would like to, these are smaller things that I just came to mind as you were talking. I was at the beginning really pleased to see that the Smart City initiatives, the committee that you're putting together or have been working to look at technology options and those kinds of, obviously that's our future. I have been concerned and thinking a lot recently about electric infrastructure since I do see that, I do believe in a decade or two we will be going primarily or all electric with all our vehicle travel. And I just started wondering about our electric vehicle infrastructure and whether that expectation is that it will be totally a private enterprise type of thing, or if what our place will be in that as government to try to understand and provide our electric vehicle infrastructure. So I'm wondering about that committee that you have, tasking it kind of with, if you're not, starting to understand and look at that and explain it to us as MPO and as the county and everything else, so we can start to understand what we need to do to facilitate what I think will be coming. The other thing I just want to put out there, in case, or just depending on what options are taken north of I-275 and what's there, there's one section of the roadway throughout this region that doesn't have noise walls. It's right where I live. But that's not the only reason. I just think that we need to be looking at the noise walls the quality of life is severely diminished by the noise of these major roadways, but also, I think working with the Department of Health, there was a watershed study a few years ago that I'm sure you're familiar with the effects that living next to the roadways have on pulmonary health, early death, asthma, everything else from the effects of the gases that are released by the air toxins that are released with the cars. Hopefully the electric will start to deal with that, but we still will have that issue for some time, and we'll still have the noise. So I think all of those are important things moving forward that I just would like the department to be considering.
Okay, very good. I appreciate it. If I could respond on one piece of that, the noise walls. Department typically, their policy is we don't go back and retrofit for noise. But I will say some of our options, Commissioner Kemp, up through the area, maybe it's something where until, we talked about boulevards or a longer term improvement. If we go in there and even restripe and repurpose some of those lanes for operational to add, from interchange to interchange or up even through Bush on restriping to use that existing, because you all see the existing asphalt we have out there. If we did something like that, we would go reevaluate, and I'm confident the noise walls would go in with that.
That's good to know, because I see those
Yes.
pieces of roadway that's not used when
Yes.
it was, the surface was put in to close it. And obviously, at some point, those will carry many more cars. And so that would be, I imagine, changing the nature of those roads.
Yes. So we're looking forward to the next year if join you in that conversation that we can do that.
Thank you. Commissioner White.
I have a question that may seem like a strange one and a bit off topic, but it is related to a project that you mentioned, and you'll see where I'm headed with it in the end. On the bridge rebuilds, what do you typically do with the demolition material?
It varies. Sometimes it's, matter of fact, we're working with agencies as we speak. Do you use it as artificial reefs? Do you have them truck it off? That's where we're writing in the cost of what that would be.
So I can stop you right there. That's exactly why I asked the question. We do have an artificial reef program through the Hillsborough Environmental Protection Commission. So if you haven't already reached out to EPC, I would strongly encourage you to reach out to Janet Doherty, our executive director, and see if we might be able to strike an agreement to put some of those materials to good use for our artificial reef program.
We will do that. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Commissioner White. Mr. Mechanic.
Yes, sir. In talking about a couple of the options you're looking at for downtown, the downtown interchange, you didn't mention, does that mean you may not be, I have two questions actually, but will that mean you will not be rebuilding the downtown, the existing structure? Because I understand because of its age, it's getting to the point where it needs to be replaced, even if you're not making changes to it.
There is a possibility that we would not rebuild much of the interstate through that downtown interchange. And what we found is through our bridge maintenance structures, we have a very robust bridge maintenance staff. Those structures actually are sound for multiple years to come. Okay. And then 20, 30 years from now, if there's a change in where we want to go with things, maybe at that point. But we did find that those can stay.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
The other question is, under these new concepts you're considering, what is happening with the express lanes as they potentially would exit or enter from downtown?
Good question. They would have ingress and egress points. For example, I think they drop into the Ashley exit when they come down in there. We've heard from the community about reestablishing connections at Ashley too, so we're looking at how we can accomplish both of those, the grid system there. It'll also tie into the Tampa Hillsborough Expressway Authority, so some of that weave that's there, people trying to get across coming down southbound, so we would tie the express lanes to get down into the Tampa Hillsborough Expressway Authority. So I'm trying to think. I think that's the only ingress egress. And then if you're coming westbound, there's going to be some ingress points more to the east. You try and control them, otherwise you just end up with another clogged lane if you don't control that too much. But as we go through, we haven't totally finalized our ingress egress points, balance the operation versus the need where people will be getting on.
Okay.
So, but at least one will be getting off at Ashley there.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
We have Councilman Vieira and then Mayor Lott.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I just also wanted to join my colleagues in thanking FDOT for the process that we've seen. We've seen it in my district. We've seen it in our larger community in terms of reaching out to the community. And I hope that we're seeing positive results of that are going to be implemented in what ultimately TB Next is. I always tell people that this is potentially one of the most exciting things to happen to this area in transportation in generations, where citizens can be real stakeholders in terms of what their future is going to be with transportation potentially. One thing that, and we've talked about this many times before, is the USF area that always encourage investments in the TB Next project eventually in USF. I'm sure you read recently about the $1.5 billion in investments from numerous entities, including Moffitt Cancer Center, University of South Florida, Florida Hospital, University Mall, et cetera, Busch Gardens, that are going to be taking place over the next 10 years. There's a lot of exciting things out there, and I think that we need to see continued transit investments in that area to really tap into the potential that we have into that area. And I know we've talked about some potential projects there, but I would just continue to encourage you to follow up on that.
Thank you very much. And if I may throw this out, Councilman. We've been working with Mark Sharp, City of Tampa, Hillsborough County. What are the potentials for running transit systems through there? We've even talked about looking at an elevated system through Fowler, where it comes through there. That way, you can have an autonomous and a transit corridor on the lower level, so to speak, and maybe traffic up top. So we are working with Mark on the, like you said, with Mark Sharp, with Moffitt. How can we have a public-private partnership potentially through there as well? So that'll continue, and it'll be tied to the regional transit feasibility plan too. Where are they going to come through for our multimodal centers? So Fowler is an emphasis point for us. So thank you for your comments and your past support for that.
Thank you, sir.
Mayor Lott.
I've been on this board 14 years, and I always call myself I'm a self-appointed historian on the board, and I can't remember in 14 years that I've seen the colleagues here being so pro FDOT. So, I mean, I can't recall this. It's been a long time, but it's been a while, and so great job taking and listening to the citizens of our community, listen to this board, and reacting and coming up with an attitude and a plan that I think people are starting to get on board with. So that shows you, it should show everyone that you are listening and you do care. So great job there. On another fact, though, is it not just on Tampa Bay Next, but even if you look into our 5-year work plan, that's not a 5-year work plan that's only focused in one area of our county. I mean, if you look there, there's projects that affects all corners, all 360 degrees of Hillsborough County. And to me, it shows an attitude that you're listening, you have plans, and not only do you have plans, but you're vetting them and getting them done. So we're seeing action in the streets. So I think you're doing a great job, and not just from Plant City, but all around. Keep up the good work, and we hope we can see this attitude and this energy that we feel inside FDOT right now to be able to continue for years to come. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you very much. I want to concur with what's been said. I think it's really been a positive process, and I hear an awful lot of feedback that the discussions are really robust and encompassing a lot of options. One of the things that I have been most concerned about through this process has been trying to minimize the expansion outside of the envelope that the expressway is already in. And it appears from the consideration of the express lanes on I-75 instead of 275, from the reiteration of the fact that the work is going to be done inside the envelope from downtown to West Shore, and also the schematics that you showed today regarding the downtown interchange, it really does appear that you're listening to those concerns and working hard to try to minimize those takings. And I know that all of us appreciate that, and I know that the many people that are affected by the projects appreciate it as well. So thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you very much.
And we'll see you again soon.
Thank you.
Okay. We have 2 additional items. We are going over our regular allotted time. Our next one is the Regional Planning Best Practices Study, Schedule, and Survey, and Ms. Alden will present that.
Thank you so much. And board members, we've talked for quite some time about a potential consolidation of MPOs. And so I'd just like to give you a brief verbal update right now on where we are. Last year, this board asked the Department of Transportation to sponsor an independent outside review of our regional planning and to make recommendations. And then we sponsored a kickoff workshop at Collaborative Labs. The next step of that has moved forward. The department has funded that study, and the contract has been awarded to Stantec. The project manager is a gentleman named Scott Lane, who will be here to speak to you at a future meeting. Mr. Lane is an MPO director from Virginia and from North Carolina. And in fact, he did a regional merger study for the Charlotte area MPO several years ago. So he has a lot of depth of experience with this. We had a chance to talk with him at the last TBARTA MPO directors meeting and got some perspectives from him on the scope of work. There is a draft schedule for the study in your agenda packets. And I just wanted to give you a few highlights of that. They are going to be looking at creating several implementable scenarios, one of them being a merger of 3 MPOs. There may be other scenarios that they propose. They'll also be looking at a scenario that looks at strengthening without merging. In all of those scenarios, they'll be looking at the larger region as well as the tri-county transportation management area, and what is the role of our larger regional entities, of which there are 3 already. The MPO Chairs Coordinating Committee with 8 counties, and TBARTA and the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council with slightly less than that. So a complicated process to try to make tweaks in, but looking at that in its full context. So the study will help us to better understand how we define success, and then what barriers are there to achieving that success. And one of the things that the consultant team brought up to us was the role of state law in having a strong regional organization, and pointed to state laws in other states, not only enabling but creating strong regional organizations that have things like oversight over growth decisions, or larger regional funding sources. We've talked about San Diego, for example, which has its own regional funding source. If we do want to have stronger regional planning here, the indication that we got was we're going to need the support of our legislative delegation and look at our state laws. So the timing of this study, the next step is to interview each of the MPOs. That was proposed at the staff level. I've invited our vice chair to participate in that. Councilman Cohen has been a member of the Tampa Bay TMA leadership group since its inception. Then the consultant team will be laying out the existing conditions and our perceptions around the region of what's working and what we would like to have work better. Using that information, they will then look at how other MPOs have done some of those things better. And again, our consultant had some perspectives from around the country, suggested that no MPO in America is doing all of the things that we would probably like to do. And so we'll probably take a lesson learned from this MPO, a lesson learned from that MPO, and bring them back to us for our consideration. He keeps saying things like there are as many different kinds of MPO organizations as there are flavors of ice cream. In the spring, he'll bring back those case studies. We'll have a collaborative workshop in May. There'll be town hall meetings over the summer, and then a possible third workshop next fall. So to help the consultant team start to narrow its focus, we've prepared a survey, which is in our agenda packet, and there's a blank version in your folders today, board members. And I'd appreciate your response on that survey. We did use this survey with audience polling at the September 29th Transportation Management Area Leadership Group meeting. We had 36 participants, and the results of that poll are in your agenda packet. Just a couple of highlights from that. We asked, what do you think is the most important benefit of creating a regional structure? And the benefits, clearly speaking with one voice on regional priorities and providing a mechanism to shape the region's sustained economic growth through smart transportation decisions paired with economic policy. We also asked about risks, and the long list of risks that we asked about, we had about 30% saying there are no significant risks, and then we had a smattering of response to the rest of the risks. We asked about what should this regional organization or entity do, and we had strong consensus that it should set priorities, and it should look at both local land use decisions for consistency with those priorities and local transportation spending decisions for consistency with those priorities. But that we might like to keep our economic policy decision-making in a separate organization or separate organizations that we continue to coordinate with from the regional level to the local level. And the other, big lesson that I saw coming out of that polling activity was the interest in local agencies continuing to have the final decision over local funding sources, over the use of what resources we have for transportation spending. And there was a lot of interest at that September 29th meeting in creating a new regional funding source to help support regional priorities. So, board members, I'd love to receive your responses to this survey using the hard copy in your folders. If you could return those to me before Thanksgiving, or I can email out electronic versions to you as well. And any other suggestions that you'd like me to take back to the consultant team, I'd appreciate.
Okay, thank you for that. Are there any comments or questions from board members at this time? I don't see any, so we will assume that everyone will do their homework assignment and return this to you prior to the Thanksgiving holiday. Our last update this morning is the MPO School Transportation Working Group. We have lost a few members this morning. This is a very important topic. We had a very, very robust discussion about this at the policy group. So it's at the board's pleasure if we want to go ahead and have that today. If we want to do it next time, it's really up to everybody. But it's got to be discussed at some length if we do it. So, Commissioner Merman.
Thank you. And what I'm for postponing it to the next meeting, and I'll tell you why. Because I wanted to make a motion to, as part of the presentation, I wanted to request that our Hillsborough County Public Works staff, under the leadership of Lucia Garces, that they come to an MPO meeting, which would be in December, to make a presentation on all the projects that Hillsborough County and the city, you could ask the city to do the same thing, including the projects that they are doing, working on school projects, school safety projects. They'd have to describe the work that the school board staff is doing with the county staff, the operational, the funding, the Board of County Commission money that is going to projects, and you could also do that with the city. So we could have just one big presentation instead of just piecemealing it.
I'm wondering also, I don't know what our agenda looks like for December, but I'm wondering, and then I'll go to you, Commissioner Kemp, I'm wondering whether or not we can really have an entire meeting focused on school issues.
And Mr. Chairman, point of order, I will second Commissioner Merman's motion.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
So we do have a motion and a second, but we'll have some discussion on that motion. Commissioner Kemp, you asked to be recognized.
Yes, thank you. I also would like to postpone it to a future meeting because I think this meeting's gone on quite long with a lot of important information, but I think this topic deserves our full attention and our full board, and I just think at this point it's best postponed.
So, Ms. Stewart, yes.
Lisa has a very extensive presentation today. You're asking for more, so I agree with the postponement. We have done a lot of work in this committee in the short time that we have been, it's been a little more than a year that we have been in place. And thank you to Lisa and the staff all of your staffs come from the county, from the city, Temple Terrace, Plant City, are all present at the table, as well as a lot of my staff from Hillsborough County Public Schools. So I'm excited about the work that we're doing. There's a lot happening, a lot that's being done in conjunction with FDOT and on all of the agencies that I think needs to be brought to the surface and to the public and discussed. You got a very small taste at the policy committee of some of the issues that we're dealing with at the school district level, and I think it does warrant a larger group of people hearing, and we have lost some members today. We have some members absent too. So if Lisa is okay with presenting a larger presentation in December, I'm fine with that.
And let me just say, before we vote on this motion, I do think we should do it in December because there were definitely items that came up that might be germane to how we're going to lobby the legislature in this upcoming session. There were state responsibilities that were talked about that I think all of us felt like we as a community might need to weigh in on. So we would still have an opportunity to do that. So if that is the sum of the discussion, we have a motion from Commissioner Merman, seconded by Commissioner White, and it's to I think to both postpone this to our next meeting and also to add the presentation she described from the county. And I'm going to extrapolate that you're asking for the same thing
Yes.
from the city of Tampa, as well as the other jurisdictions if they have something that they'd like to present. So
Absolutely.
all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you very much. Executive Director's report. Ms. Alden.
Thank you. And very briefly, we do have a meeting of the MPO Chairs Coordinating Committee coming up to workshop our regional priorities on December 1st. That is going to be at PSTA. Our next meeting, which will be the following Tuesday, will include an election of our board's officers for 2018. You have in your folders a copy of our quarterly report. Let me know if you'd like to be briefed on any of the projects that are described in your quarterly report. And you also have an updated board roster reflecting our new members. And one other fun item, there's a connected vehicle demonstration on Monday. And I think we can find information about that online, correct?
Is it on now? Okay. There is, but it is limited. I'm unfortunate to say we have a lot more demand than we have space to actually get people in cars and running them around so they can experience it. The Florida Automated Vehicle Summit. I'm also a little sorry to say that we've actually sold out a week ago. So if you haven't registered, I'm sorry you missed this chance, but we're going to be doing it again next year. This is the third time Thea has sponsored it in partnership with the DOT. But we know we're going to have it again next year. So if you didn't make it this time, there will be another chance. We again thank the automated, connected, electric, and shared transportation picture is our future, and we think it has great promise for us. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, well, if there is no more old or new business to do, our next meeting is Tuesday, December 5th at 9 a.m., and we are adjourned until then. Okay. I think I have to, yeah. Do I think all right.